Bruce Burnett, you just inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. You've been inducted into a lot of Hall of Fames across your career. What does this one mean to you?
Well, it's extra special for the simple fact that so many greats have been through here, and I've been blessed to have coached, I think, 14 of them or worked with them that have already been inducted to the Hall of Fame, and so to be added to the list is just a great honor for me.
When you finished competing, did you ever see yourself potentially in the Hall of Fame one day?
No, far cry from this little boy from Bakersfield, California that made this huge journey, you know, to work with high school athletes, kids wrestling, university national champions, NCAA champions, world and Olympic champions. So that journey, clearly divine intervention, just blessed to have had the opportunity.
So you've coached a lot of teams across all levels over the years. Outside of the two teams that won world titles, what were some particularly memorable ones for you?
Well, that's what's really interesting in my career, the simple fact that each one of them is a different moment in time that holds a special place or a different chapter. So, you know, winning your first state high school wrestling title, to having your first state high school wrestling champion, to getting the work done so you stand on the top podium at the NCAA championships, top podium at the world championships, and top opponents podium at the Olympics. So, I mean, look, it's a storybook career, really. I mean, in terms of what I've been able to do, the places I've been, but more importantly, the people I've been around. I mean, it's just amazing.
Can you talk a little bit about that 93 team and what made it special and the feeling of accomplishment that everyone felt once we won our first team title?
Yeah, I can. So Leroy Smith had left and gone to Arizona State, so I became the national freestyle coach. And 1993 was actually my first year as the head coach of everything, which is a lot different than being the assistant, you know, where you just do what you're told and make sure your job's done and do it well. But now you're in charge of everything. And I'll be honest with you, in 1993 I micromanaged everything, from the practices to the weight cuts to the weigh-ins to the matches to the scouting. So for me it was the first time of really being fully engaged, every athlete, every aspect. And you don't get to be around them every day of the year, so you have that short amount of time. So 1993, first year the Soviets had broken up. And that helped, that window really did help. Our preparation and everything was solid. But the mix of the athletes in 1993, to have Dave Schultz and Bruce Bumgarner on the top end of the scale, and have Terry and Tom Brands on the bottom end of the scale, and Zeke Jones and Kevin Jackson kind of in the middle of it, right? And so you had different eras, the young coming up and the old still hanging on, and their leadership and the combination of the team really did increase our chances to be successful in Toronto. There were some physical factors that helped as well. I mean, the heat in the gym was huge, and so it took a lot of gut wrenches and some technical things out. But no, the preparation, the follow through, the combination of the athletes and the coaching staff. I mean, we came together well, and they did such a good job. But the preparation was good. Everything went the way it was supposed to.
What did it feel like to make history on that day?
Wow, you know what? For me, looking at the history of it, looking back, I get it more now than I did at the moment. At the moment, it was everybody. It was about everybody. It was about Rob Eider's experience and Kevin Jackson's experience and Bruce Bumgarner's experience and Dave and Townsend Saunders. I mean, Terry and Tom Brands. And so when you micromanage, when you're trying to take care of everything, make sure everything gets done, you're focused on the moments. I wasn't focused on the big picture. The little moments take care of the big picture. And so reflecting back, yeah, it was a huge deal, a big deal. And an important step for USA Wrestling to be recognized at the top of the podium, and all of a sudden the rest of the world having to recognize and understand what our role is and where we're at. And somebody had to come beat us. And make no mistakes, the day after that, Russia, they put it on top of their list, and the pin went to the top and where they had to go, as well as Iran and Turkey and so many other countries. But those countries that had been dominant, they took notice. And honestly, from that point on, everything got tougher. There's more Soviet nations wrestling now, so more Soviets. They collaborated, so everything after that got a little bit harder. And so we had to maintain, continue to grow, continue to get better, continue to take our young special athletes and give them the information and the tools to set them apart and make them better.
So can you talk about that second title then, 2 years later in 95, and how that was different and what changes occurred in that span?
Yeah, in 1995, great experience for us because we were in Atlanta. We had the home crowd. But again, we had a lot of the same athletes and a lot of the combination of the young and the old getting more experience and actually getting better. You look at Bruce Baumgartner, who's winning a bronze medal in 1996, is huge for the people that he beat and the things that he was able to do. But again, we strived to do everything right. We had a fall off in 1994, and part of it had to do with our preparation and some things that we did, and we had to correct it. We had to make it better, and so it's all about the process and understanding that, you know, your push is always to do well at that World Championships, but understanding the ultimate goal is 4 years of preparation for the Olympic Games. And that was a learning curve for me, making sure that the rest of the world, it's about the Olympics. And I thought World Championships were as important, and they are important, make no mistakes, but the Olympics, the whole world looks for 4 years. So 95, in the preparation and the things that we did, was actually a build-up for 96. We were testing everything, or I was actually trying to micromanage. Where do we train? Where do we weight cut? Where do, you know, everything that had to take place. So 1995, but special. In 1995 was also tough because we had some athletes, Melvin Douglas and Zeke Jones, they were just inches away from winning world titles instead of medals, bronze medals, you know. So it still comes back to each individual and their performance. And so that's where my focus was. And then looking at that preparation for 1996 so that we don't make any mistakes that we might have made in 95. We weren't going to make them in 96. Right? And so it's a constant process.
And how was that first Olympic Games as a head coach?
It was extremely challenging. I don't know if people remember in 1996, as you're trying to micromanage everybody's weight, everybody's preparation, everybody's scouting, everybody's, each individual and their workout partners, I mean, everything. And then all of a sudden we're in the village and there's a bomb explosion, and how's that going to impact our performance and our preparation, and how do we get around it and get back to focusing on what we need to focus on? And the athletes did such a good job, but I mean, Kurt Angle's experience, I mean, just think about that, how emotional it was in the preparation and the way that he won the matches, very tactical. And Dave Schultz, you know, being not actually at the 96 Olympics, and 95 was challenging for us. So there were a lot of emotional parts to that, but 96, the first Olympic Games, was a huge experience for me. And I think for our athletes as well, you know, being in Atlanta. And I was able to work with Kendall Cross at Oklahoma State and to see him win, and not very many people know it, and I'm sure Kendall actually tries to forget about it as well, but that late night in the sauna and getting him over to, I didn't even take him back to the village. We took him to a hotel room where his wife was staying. It was a tough weight cut for him. So those things that you don't see on the podium actually get you to the top of the podium. So it's fun. What a great sport, and what great challenges that each athlete and coach endures, you know. But I've been blessed enough to do it on the highest levels.
Well, and not only that, but you have a career that spans decades. You know, 20 years later, you're coaching the 2016 Olympic team. You know, what's that mean to you to be able to span kind of generations of wrestlers?
Well, no, it's really important. So whoever watches these videos, coaches, athletes, I want them to all understand this part of it. You can't step in as the national coach and have credibility. You can't have the creds with the young athletes that you haven't worked with. I don't see, national coaches don't see them day in and day out. You only get so many credentials at the World Championships and Olympic Games, so not everybody can be there. So the preparation has to be very close between the personal coaches, the athlete, and the national coach. But make no mistakes, the preparation, the national coach has to be able to have input to help those athletes understand the international part of it. And so to get that credibility, it's not instantaneous, and sometimes it takes a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3. So stepping back in 2016, I would say for most of the personal coaches, I had credibility because I coached them and they understood that I had their best interests at heart. You know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do we fix them? Who do you have to beat? And how does that compare to the opponents that you're going to have? So there's a lot of work and a lot of things that have to be overcome. And I'm going to say this, especially to the athletes. As good as you are, you better get better for the rest of the world. Because there's somebody out there that's really good where you're not quite as good. You can be really good in certain areas, but you better be prepared for the rest of it. And so, I know that's a lot of stuff, but the reality of it is, that's how it happens. And to come back in 2016 and have a brand new group of athletes that they don't know what we're going to do at training camp, and they don't understand how this guy can come in, but I do a lot of work. It was a lot of work to go back and watch, I'm going to say every athlete that was on those teams in 2014, 2015, prepping for 2016 because that was my goal, to go back and actually watch all their matches that I could possibly find. I mean, so maybe I watch 50 matches and study, you know, our athletes. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their opponents on the rest of the world? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How do we compare? If we can fix 3 things before the Olympic Games, just 3, maybe there's 10, but 3 really stand out. What 3 things can we fix to give them a better chance to be on top of the podium? And so coaches, athletes, well, hopefully you get to see this because you better keep getting better. I don't care if you've won, you're a 2-time winner, or never been on the podium. Get better. Learn something new. Every opportunity you have. And not always, this is the key, not in your room. Those are the people you see every day. Those are the people that you train with every day. You get too familiar with it. Get out and test yourself outside your room every 6 to 8 weeks. This is for the elite athletes because not everybody can do it. But you top guys, you better get out and test yourself because the rest of the world, they're doing it. They're working. Russia doesn't just work with Russia athletes. They work with Uzbekistan. They work with Belarus. They're tested. They get their best guys and they test them every 6 to 8 weeks.
Coach, congratulations. Well deserved. Thank you for all your contributions to the sport.
Yeah, strength and honor.